I would like to talk about former President Biden. Newly released tapes from Mr. Biden's 2023 interview with special counsel Robert Hur show him really struggling to recall key moments, including the dates, the death of his son, Beau, as well as when former President Trump, at the time former President Trump was elected. Take a look.
Months Beau died. May 30th,
2015.
Was it 2015 he died?
2015.
I think it's 2015.
I'm not sure the months are, but I think it was.
Yeah.
That's right, Mr. President.
And what's happened in the meantime is that Trump gets elected in November of 2017? 2016.
Senator, is this audio proof that President Biden shouldn't have run for re-election?
Well, I don't know that that's a particularly fair excerpt. That's a very emotional topic for the president. But obviously, in retrospect, the president should have gotten out of the race earlier. There's no doubt that the Democratic Party would have been better served by having the ability to have an open primary. Kamala Harris probably would have done very well in that process. But in retrospect, we lost. And so I don't think you can defend the way in which our politics played out. I mean, listen, what I've said is that, like anybody who reaches that stage in their life, there is some level of diminishment. But I got to work with the president pretty closely in 2022 and 2023, and I saw a president who was passing legislation and helping the American people at a pretty unprecedented rate. That being said, by 2024, the American people had decided that they wanted somebody new. They wanted somebody younger, and it was a mistake. It was a mistake for Democrats to not listen to the voters earlier and set up a process that would have gotten us in a position where we could have been more competitive that fall.
Let me ask you this. The new book, Original Sin, by Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson, goes even further and actually details what they call a cover-up from the White House, from top aides around the president. Here's a little bit of what they have written. Quote, one senior White House aide who left because they didn't think Biden should run again confessed to us that we attempted to shield him from his own staff. So many people didn't realize the extent of the decline beginning in 2023. Do you think some top officials in the Biden White House covered up the state of his mental health at the time?
Well, I haven't read the book, and so I don't know what to say about the allegations they make. But I know that I worked with him throughout 2020-22 on the gun bill, which has saved, by the way, thousands of lives. He was intimately involved in those negotiations. I was in the White House in the fall of 2023 doing an hour-and-a-half-long meeting on some really complicated developments in the Middle East, and I saw a president who was in control. So that's my experience. But I admit that by 2024, the American public had made up their mind, right, that they wanted the Democratic Party to nominate somebody new. And it was absolutely a mistake for the party to not listen to those voters.
Just to be very clear, do you bear some responsibility as well?
Oh, I think we all bear responsibility. Listen, and I think, we maybe didn't listen as early as we should have, in part because we have immense loyalty to this man who had led this country out of a pandemic, who had been maybe the most prodigious legislator as a president, the Inflation Reduction Act, the Infrastructure Act, the bipartisan gun bill, in a generation. But ultimately, in retrospect, you can't defend what the Democratic Party did because we are stuck with a madman, with a corrupt president in the Oval Office, and we should have given ourselves a better chance to win.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.